Hello everyone and welcome to this video tutorial. In this video, we're going to be using Svelte to build a very nice interactive music player application. But before we proceed, we have to go through some couple of slides and explain to you what Svelte is. Kindly hit the like button as well as the subscribe button. And right now, let's dive in. Svelte is a front-end JavaScript framework for making interactive web pages. And the three key features of Svelte is that you write less codes, there are no virtual DOM, and also it is very truly reactive. A little bit comparison with Vue.js, React.js, and Svelte is that they are all component-based, but Svelte doesn't use a virtual DOM. It will just compile your code down to vanilla JavaScript at build time, whereas React.js or Vue.js interprets your code at a runtime. So this is much more a clearer difference and also make things a little bit less in size and also a little bit faster. Every framework does have a feature that makes them special. So with Svelte, I've shown you about the less codes, no virtual DOM, and truly reactive. So let's just go ahead and explain a little bit about these three key features of Svelte. When we talk about less code in Svelte, this is just a very brief explanation of a few lines of code that saves your time, reduces bugs, and also increases readability. So this is just a very good example of a hello world template, and you see we just have a script tag and the HTML tag. Beneath that, you can add a style tag and add some CSS styles if you want, but this kind of makes it more cooler and makes it more readable and very simple. So when we talk about virtual DOM strategically updates DOM without redrawing all the nodes in a single page application. So let me just give you a brief example apart from what I just put down here. Let's say if a house is dirty and let's say you want to clean that house, you have to start cleaning from the bed to the chair to the tables. So you do these things one after the other. So in a virtual DOM, it's more like all these things are stacked, but when you update a tag, it just goes directly to that tag and update that tag specifically. But with Svelte, we don't have to do that. There is nothing like those tags in our code. So you can see a very good example down here. Virtual DOM in React.js, it contains a lot of libraries, frameworks that will just compile down to your application. But with Svelte, you don't need to worry yourself about this. Everything just compiles for you at build time. So in the most basic sense, the virtual DOM is a way to update the state by comparing the snapshot of a previous tree or custom object with the current one. And it's used in React.js as well as Vue.js. But in Svelte.js, there are nothing like virtual DOM. So you just get what you just impute and it's just pure JavaScript. So when we talk about Svelte Reactivity, this is just a very brief example of what reactivity means. So whenever we run or change something in a component, it just updates that immediately. So this is just a very good example of a Svelte reactivity statement. Or let's say you want to update your state. So let's just say the count there is our state and we just have to use a function and update that. But with React.js, you see, you have to import hooks. You have to update your state with this.state. But with Svelte, you just reference that variable and just update it directly. So this code is kind of more simpler than React.js or Vue.js, which is very cool. So for more clarity, this is an example of how Svelte Js looks on your browser. So it's just a pure JavaScript element that is just injected into your browser. Unlike React.js, you have virtual DOMs, or Vue.js, you have virtual DOMs. So Svelte is just different. It's a compiler. It generates JavaScript codes that updates the visual tree directly without diving. So you can just go over to their official documentation to have more understanding of this. So for you to get started with this tutorial, you're expected to know at least basic structures like variables, array method, functions, and classes. Then we have the promises on how to make a request. Also, you have to know how to make use of some DOM manipulation with JavaScript as well as Node Package Manager. So knowing all this is enough for you to get started in this tutorial. So kindly hit the like button and the subscribe button, and right now let's get started. At the end of this tutorial, we're going to be building this nice music application. It consists of routes, so we can go to the next route and also we can go back to the previous route, and we can actually play music we can skip a music, we can pause a music, we can also go back, and it consists of a menu. And when we click on this menu, we get to see the playlist of songs. So anyone you want to play, you can just go ahead and click on it. But this is going to be your challenge, that when you click on this, you play the music. So by the end of this tutorial, you're expected to have enough knowledge to be able to fix this one, because it's going to be your challenge. But for every other thing here, you are going to get it for free. So kindly hit the like button and also the subscribe button. And guys, check on the description. You're going to see a link to the GitHub repository. And right now, let's dive into the basics. So on Svelte default homepage, you're going to scroll down. You're going to see how to set up a very simple project with Svelte. And this is just what we're going to be doing. But I'm going to click on Quick Start Guide. And what I'm going to do is to type down this command here and then specify our project name. So let's just quickly do that. So I'm going to type down npx digits. So when we use digits, we can use that to set up this Svelte project. So we have Svelte Js /templates/ my project name. So let's just call it Svelte course. And I'm going to hit enter and allow that command to finish up. So I'm going to switch into Svelte course folder. And then I'm going to open the project folder with Visual Studio Code. So now that we have that ready, I'm going to open that on our Visual Studio Code. So in case you want to set up the TypeScript project, it's also very simple. So I think I just opened the wrong browser. So right here, when you scroll down, you can see how to set up the TypeScript Svelte project. You can just go ahead and click on it to find out more information if you wish to do that. So we're not going to go through that for now. So I'm just going to come back to the project folder, and then right here you can see how a Svelte project folder scaffold does look like. So we have the rollup, which is going to help us to be a compiler. Then we have our source folder, just like any other framework that has a source folder where we can put in our components. And we have the script folder for setting up the TypeScript. Then inside this public folder, we have our HTML, and the HTML contains the bundle file, which compiles everything to the bundle.js file at build, and also the CSS that come from each component at build as well. So this one is also a global style CSS that we just provided there, and our file icon, just like any other project. So I'm just gonna click on this app. So a Svelte component kind of looks very, very simple. It's not complicated like React JS or Vue.js. This is what kind of makes it cool and what I love about it. Like when you're talking about React JS or Vue.js, you have to import a whole lot of things. But for this one, you just have a script tag, HTML tag, and a lot of styles. And when we scroll a little bit up, you can see we do have a name here. So this name is probably coming from our entry point, which is the main.js file. So right here, you can see we have a name called word. So this kind of binds everything we are doing to the index file or to the document file, which is the index file over there. So just like any other component, you have to import the app and initialize the app and then target your binder. In this case, we are not dealing with virtual DOM, so that's why we just target the HTML file, which is the index file. So right here, you can see the props, and we are not going to need this. I'm just going to get rid of it. And I'm going to come over here and get rid of this. So you can see right here, we have something like export let name, but as we progress, I'm going to show you how to do that as well. So I can get rid of that, and we can just specify the word over here. So we can say let name equal to word. So I'm going to save. And one more thing I forgot to tell you is that on your own code editor, you may not necessarily see it styled this way. In order to do that, just make sure you have the Svelte extension installed on your Visual Studio Code. So just go ahead and do that. So I'm using Svelte for Visual Studio Code. Just go ahead and install it so that you can have Svelte recognized by your Visual Studio Code. Before we can run our project, we have to make sure we install everything from the Node Package Manager. So I didn't even go through that. So which is going to install all these dependencies, both the rollup and also the serve, which is going to help us serve our application. And I'm just going to come over here and type an npm install. So lastly, I will just run the npm run dev. and hit enter, and it's going to generate a link, a localhost link that we're going to copy and paste in our browser to be able to use our Svelte application on our browser. So right now you can see the link. I can just hit enter to copy that. So right now in our browser, we can just put in that link, and you can see we still have our hello world displaying there. So we have our Svelte Js app running up. So now let's go ahead and go through some basic things before we start building on our application. So first thing first is to go through variables. So we can say let surname. So I just want it to be on the same place. So we can say let surname equal to Samuel, and the name is Samuel. Sorry, the surname is Boskills. So that's how we can set up a variable. And right here, I can say hello Samuel. Your surname, let me just use a paragraph. Your surname is, then we can use curly braces and bring in the surname. So that's how to use a variable with Svelte. And let me just go ahead and save. And you can see automatically it's going to refresh that, and our page is going to be updated with that input. So you can see we have hello Samuel, your surname is wherever that's here. So that's how to set up variables. So let's say we want to change the color of our surname and make it a little bit nicer. So I can use the scope CSS that we can see here. You can see we have a lot of CSS being applied here, which is kind of a little bit responsive on a 640 screen. So we have the heading 1, which is this, and also the width, I think. Okay, I was thinking they added for the paragraph, but there's no CSS for the paragraph. So for this paragraph, we can add an inline style, or we can specify a scope style. So let me say I want all the paragraph to have a text color of yellow. I can just come here and target all the paragraph. I can say I want the colors to be yellow. So let me just go ahead and save that. So right now you can see all the text color here, it's now yellow. That looks very, very awkward. So I can just get rid of it. So if you want to add an inline style, which is also very simple to do. So all you can simply do is to add an inline style, and then right here you can just simply say color it's yellow, which is going to also affect all the colors that you see right here. So that's how to use colors with Svelte. So let's say I want to change the color of the surname, which is very, very simple. I want to use an inline style. I can just specify, let's say I'm going to use a span here. So I was just expecting that. So inside this span, I can add an inline style, and I can just say color. Let me just use blue. That will be better. And let's save. So when we save and it refreshes, we should definitely see our surname colored in blue. So right now you can see the skills over there is colored in blue. So with Svelte Js, we can go ahead and update these state values or these variables at the top there, which is very simple. For us to do that, we can just create a function that can help us to do that called update values. So inside this function, I'm going to target the name, and I'm going to say, we can say this is Svelte. And for the surname, we can say this is a video. Then right here, I'm going to get rid of this, and then we can add a button. And then I'm going to add a type of button there. So right here, you can say update values. So with Svelte, we do have some inline bind events. So I can reference the click. I can say on click. Then right here, I'm going to have a curly braces with a callback. And inside here, I'm going to call back the function, which is update values. So I'm just going to save that, and I hope you can see this clearly. Let me just take this to the right a little bit. Yeah. So right now, when I click on this, you can see hello Svelte, and it's also updated the value of the video, or we can say this is the name. and also this is the surname. So it's kind of very funny that the names are not really friendly, but it's not really bad. So we do have this is both skills, and when we click on this, you can see automatically it updates to this is Svelte video. So I wanted to talk about the event, but this is a kind of event that we also used here, which is not really bad. So what I'm going to do next is to create some couple of groceries. So let me just call this groceries. I hope I spelled things correctly this time. So I can say let groceries equals an array of, so the first one is going to contain an ID of 1 with a name of milk. And then we have, okay, let me just leave it this way for now in order not to make it complicated. So the second one can be a bread. The third one can be, let me just increase the numbers and make sure I set up everything perfectly. So the third one, it's a, we have milk bread. We usually use tea. And the fourth one is, okay, let's just leave the first one, and we're going to use events to add that to this. I'm sure you are familiar. This has to do with loops. In order for us to display this on our browser here, which is very simple, we're just going to come down here, and inside this paragraph, I'm going to get rid of this, or let me just leave that. So right here, I can simply use the each statement. So with Svelte Js, we use something like the each, and also we close here with the each. So inside here, we have to bring in what we want to loop. That's the array of the array containing the elements. So this one, each groceries as grocery. So that solves it. And inside here, we can bring down, let me just circle this with another list. All right, here I just want to make sure it's correct. Let me just get rid of this. I think it's the main issue. I'm just turning around. So inside here, we can just use the curly braces once more. We can say each grocery dot. So right here, you can see whenever we use each grocery dot, we kind of get the ID and also the name, which is the property of the object. So I'm going to use the name, and anytime we kind of display anything, we make sure we have the key. Unlike React JS and Vue JS, you must always add the key. So right here, I think it's usually used in parentheses. Then we can say grocery.id. So this will kind of be the key. So let's go ahead and save that and see what we have. So right here, you could see we have milk, bread, tea, and one more last thing is egg. So we are going to use an event to add that to our array, which will probably update this list of array. So I think I kind of have to get rid of this as well, and get rid of this. So I can also get rid of the CSS. We don't need it for now. So at least you have an idea of how to use CSS. So that's it. And I can get rid of this. Let me just leave that one for you. So you can get this on the GitHub repository I'll be providing down in the description. So I kind of have to bring this CSS back so that it can align all these to the center, which is very cool for us. So I'm going to add a button that when we click on that button, we can add other groceries or add a grocery to this list of grocery over here. So instead of me to add a button, why don't I just use a form? That would be the best. So I'm going to add, bring down a form here. And this form is going to contain an input, and above that I'm going to add a label. I think I spelled things correctly, so I'm just say add an item. So this input is going to contain a binder and also an event receiver, which is an add item event where an add item function we are going to create at the top. So for this one, I'm just gonna give it an ID of name and give it a type of text, and I'm gonna bind this to a value. So the value is what we're gonna create at the top. So I'm just gonna call it a name value. So right here, we're gonna be making use of this name value over here to bind that. So I'm just gonna set it to empty string. So let me just comment this out for you. So I'm just gonna add for name over here. Let me see if that fixes it. Okay, that's okay. So right here, whenever we hit on enter, of course, it's going to try to reload our page, and we don't want that to happen. So I'm just gonna quickly create a function at the top called add item. So what this add item will possibly do is to take the name that we are going to insert into these and then add that to create a new object. Then we can add that object to our existing groceries. So the way we can do that is to say items. I think I'm using groceries, not items. Is equals. So we refer to this previous one. We just have to spread that using the spread operator. And then we can just create a new object with an ID of math.random. And then we can pass in the new name we just bounded with our input. And then lastly, okay, I'm always tempted to add something at the back. So lastly, we are going to bind that to this form. So the way we can do that with Svelte is to use the event for submit and submit. And I'm going to bind it to, let's say this is, so we want to prevent default event. So you just use the pipe, and then you can select the prevent default, and you can specify the name of the function, which is add item. And right away, I'm going to add some egg. So I think it's not going to work because right now I figured that this is groceries, not items. So I'm always used to items. I'm just going to allow this to refresh, and then we can add an egg. And right here, you can notice that whenever we add, we still have something in the input. The problem is that right here, we have to reset the name. So I can say the name is equal to an empty string. And we can save that. So when we come back and add an egg, so we can say egg. So it adds to it, and let's say teacup. I don't know about groceries. I always eat what I see. So let's say cake. I think it's good. Let's say nuts. Yeah. So right now, let's go ahead and talk about what are reactive values. So these values are values that changes whenever a part of two mixed variables or a number updates. Something like the way you update a count, and it updates on your DOM without interfering other components. So let me just give you a very good example. So let's say I'm going to create a reactive value this way, and by default, it's going to be 0. So instead of me to add 0 there, I want to add the groceries length. So I can say groceries.length. And at the top here, I'm going to add a paragraph. So right here, I can say reactive count. So it's gonna react to our count as well. Whenever we add something here, it's going to update that automatically. So we can just say $count. So right now, let me just go ahead and add an egg. You can see automatically that value is being updated. So let me add, I usually forget a lot of groceries, but I remember cake a lot because I do eat cake a lot. Then what else? I take a lot of chocolate. And you can see whenever we add this, automatically this gets updated without even wasting our time because of this reactive value. So it's kind of reacts to some mixed data or whether a name or surname. So whenever one changes, you have to re-update that. And this is a very good example you can use to mix both first name and second name in case you want to always re-update the data. So guys, I've shown you some other things. Right now, let's go ahead and create a component. I'm going to create a folder inside the source folder called components. And inside this component, I'm going to create a list of these groceries. So I'm just going to call this grocery list. And right here, I will just put those fields and hit and enter. So whenever we create a new component, we can add a script tag at the top, and we can make sure we close that. And right here, we can add our main tag, which is the HTML aspect, and beneath that, we can add a style tag. So for this one, I'm going to call it grossly. Let me just put a heading 2 tag, and I'm going to copy the CSS right here. Okay. Since we are going to include it here, so there's no need to copy the CSS. But I think, okay, let's just see how it goes. If it doesn't reflect there, then we can just copy down the CSS and paste it. But one thing I'm sure is that when we grab the CSS and paste it into our public folder, global.css, that will be much preferable so that we can have the CSS applied in all components. So I can just get rid of this one because we don't have a CSS. I can just save that. So right here, I'm going to call it grocery list. So let me just import that into our app component. So right here, I'm just going to comment this to be components. So this is double. So I'm going to import the grocery list from. So since we are on the same folder, I'm just going to select component / then I can select the component I want to import. And to use that is very simple. Just quickly scroll down here. I'm going to get rid of all this or just comment it out. Then right here, I can just put down the grocery list component. So let's just save and see how that looks like in our browser. So right now in our browser, you can see the grocery list. So the next thing I'm going to do is to pass these grocery props down to our grocery list. And let's say I'm just going to pass a name prop. So let's say a name called John. And inside this grocery list, we are not seeing anything yet displayed. So if we want to display that, we just have to use export let. Then we can pass in the prop name, which is the name. And with that, it's already okay for us. Then right here, I can say name is. Then right here, I can just put down the name. And when we save, we should definitely see the value passed from our component, from the props. We should definitely see it here. So let's just allow that to refresh. So right here, you can see name is John. So what I'm going to do is to pass down all the grocery lists that we do have inside our array. So I'm just going to call these groceries. So our groceries still remain our groceries over here. So we can just pass that, and I can just, let me just leave this name over there. So you can just use that as a reference. And right here, I can say export the groceries. And don't forget, we do have another list, and inside the other list, we can still loop. Definitely that would be an each statement as a grocery. Then we put the grocery.id. And then lastly, I will just close the each statement. Then right here, I can just put the list tag. And inside this list tag, I can just put the grocery.name. So this is groceries, sorry. So I don't know why I'm getting this red squiggly line. I hope I spelled things correctly. So definitely that's because I didn't arrange this properly. So this is each groceries as, so we have a grocery. So I just went directly at groceries, which is definitely wrong. So right now, let's save and refresh our browser and see what we have. So that's going to refresh, and you could see all our list is still displaying in another component from our props that we passed down to the component. So one more thing I forgot to tell you was that when I actually formatted this with Emitter, which is the built-in Svelte plugin formatter, you just pass the props with a curly braces. So that's another way you can actually use to pass the props, and it's still going to reflect in the component that we are passing the prop to. So that's how we can do that. So I'm going to create another component called add grocery. And inside that component, same thing we did for, so this is add grocery, same thing we did here for groceries. We just have to do that quickly. So inside here, I'm going to copy these from the app. I'm just going to copy everything from this form, and I'm just going to leave the reactive count over there. So I'm just going to copy these and cut that and come to the add grocery and paste that inside there. And then what I would do is to come over to, let me close this down. So right here, I'm just going to come here and put in that component called add grocery. So inside here, we do have the name. So for this name, I'm going to create a new name. So I'm just going to say let name is equal to an empty string. So the way, and also this function where we also have to, let's say, I'm going to create on a new function called on add item, which is going to have callback. And inside here, I can change this to add on add item. I think this will be best called handle submit, because we're actually preventing a default and then we're actually submitting that. So this is best for it. So what I'm going to do is right here, you could see, even if we type, let's say, an egg and hit an enter, it doesn't reflect inside our grocery, and it's kind of refreshing. Okay, that was actually been saving. So right now it's not refreshing. So even if we hit anything here, you could see possibly nothing changes. So the way we can do that is, I want to bring in what is called an event emitter of Svelte. So it's called something from Svelte. So right here, I'm going to bring in the create event dispatcher. This create event dispatcher will help me dispatch an event that I'm going to catch from the app component, so that I can actually manipulate the array values or array data. So inside here, I can just, before we do anything inside here, I can just say dispatch. So let me bring the name under here. Dispatch is equal to a create event dispatcher. And then inside here, I want to dispatch the name of the function, or sorry, the name of the event that we want to dispatch. So I'm going to call it add grocery. And then the second, this thing is going to be the data you want to dispatch. So the data is going to be the name. And right here, we already have the name bound to this state value there. So whenever we do that, we just have to reset that name. So I can just save this. And definitely, if you want to notice or check if it's working, it's very simple. After the refresh, all I can simply do is to type, let's say I type an egg and hit an enter. You could see actually it's been dispatching, just that we are not yet catching the event, but you could see our input bus just got cleared. I'm going to come over to the app component, and then I'm going to scroll down to the component. So what I can do here is to add a function that is going to be a callback function for the event catch. So I will just simply type down, what's it called again? So I can say on add grocery. So you could see automatically it suggests that to us. I can just call a function called, let's say, handle add. Yeah, so let's say handle add or handle submit. No, we already have handle submit, so let me say add grocery. So this is just the callback function. Let's say I will. Okay, we already do have add an item. So I can just simply say add item. So inside that add item, if I scroll up here and just let's say comment this out, I'm just going to quickly console.log this out so that you can see it. So when we console.log this, we are going to cache that custom event that we just emitted from this add grocery component. So let's just allow that. So I'm just going to add an egg and hit an enter. And right now you could see in the object here, we got some things. So there are a lot of other options like compose, cancelable, and blah, blah, blah. But the main important thing we are targeting is just the detail of the event that we need. And I'm going to quickly close this. So close this down, and then right here, I can simply say the name. So okay, we are not dealing with the name. Okay, let's say const. Yeah, we have the name, which is equal to e dot detail, which is the event e dot detail. Yeah. So right here, we can uncomment this, and when that is okay, we also have to reset this. And for the name, okay, let's say new item. So right here for the name, we can just set that to the new item so that we do not have duplicates. So that will be preferable than using just a name. So I can save that, and let's allow this to refresh. And I'm just going to quickly come here and add an egg, chocolate, we have beans, we have rice, and everything's still working perfectly. And you could see the reactive count is also reacting to the number of items that we have in our array. So that's pretty much it for components. So if you want to add a delete button, it's quite simple. You can just make this to be, you can add another list and then use a style to display flex on a row, so that when you click on that, you can emit an event. Then you can catch that event here and then use the detail to filter out that particular item. So let's talk about the Svelte slots. It's a kind of way to display the children of a component inside that particular component. So let's say I want to display this grocery name into another component. That's very simple for us. I'm just going to create a grocery item. Svelte. And inside here, I can just bring in the scripts. And beneath there, I'm just going to add a tag, I don't know whether it's a tag or an element called slot. So what I can simply do is to come up at the top here and bring down the components. Then I'm going to import the grocery item from. So we have the grocery item from the grocery as items Svelte file. And right here, I can just comment this out. And what I can simply do is to bring in the grocery item. So I'm not going to just close it that way. I just want to close it this way. So inside right here, I can just pass in the li tag and I'll comment that and then save that. So with the help of that slot, we are still going to be able to display these or the names of the groceries inside this slot. So let's just allow that to refresh, and you could see automatically it's going to refresh and display that. So I can still add an egg and it's still going to be added. So that's how we can use slots on Svelte Js. And right now, let's go ahead and work on routes. And for us to do that, we have to install the Svelte Navigator. So right here, you could see we don't have anything like route. So the route is kind of an ability to route from one page to another page. I'm going to install the Svelte Navigator. So just go ahead and do that as well. So let me zoom this up a little bit. So I'm just going to install that. And when it's done, we can just go ahead and still start our dev app. So it's still probably the same thing. And I'm going to come inside this component folder. I'm going to create two files. Let's say route1.svelte. So just follow along. So we also have route2.svelte. And hit and enter. And inside this, as usual, we do have script tag, the main tag, as well as the style tag. Inside here, I'm gonna have a heading 1 with route 1, and I'm gonna copy this and come over to route 2 and paste that. So we have route 2, and I just want to reduce these to like a little bit less than the first route. And for us to use our route, we just have to come over to the app folder, the app file. I'm going to comment this out, and at the top here we have to import some things from the Svelte Navigator that we just installed. So we have the Svelte Navigator that we just installed. So if you quickly go over to the package.json file, you probably will see the Svelte Navigator, and that version is probably compatible with our current version of the project. I'm just going to bring in the router and the routes, and let's just go down right here. So let's just go down here. So I'm going to wrap everything inside the router, and each router is going to have some routes. So we do have two routes, which I'm going to import the components for the respective routes. So let's import route 1. So let's say route 1 from component route 1. So you could see tab 9 AI is kind of helping me. And we have route 2 from component / route 2. So guys, don't mind I'm using auto completion. It's kind of helpful to type fast while you are doing your stuff. So I'm just going to comment this out as well. So inside each of the routes, I'm gonna bring in the children, which are the components. So we have route 1. I'm just gonna come down as well. We also have route 2. So let's go ahead and save that and refresh. So you can see that instead of the, okay, so guys, I'm kind of sorry because we actually do have to add the path, or else it's going to use the last route. So this one is the home page, and this one is the route 2, or let's just say route 2. Let's save that and refresh. So and allow that. So you could probably see route 1. So when I visit localhost 8080 route 2, you see we kind of get a page not found error. And for us to fix that is very simple. Just go ahead and first of all terminate your application and come into the package.json file. So scroll a little bit up. We are going to add a new script called start dev. And inside here, we are going to take in this Svelte, not actually this Svelte, the serve. And then we want to serve the public folder, but I'm going to add a flag of dev and also a flag of single. So this will kind of help us to route as a single page application. Then I'm going to start the dev and hit enter. And right now it started. I can just go ahead and refresh. Probably we should see route 2 display to us right now. So you could see we have the route 2 display to us, and we can clear that link and go back to route 1, which is definitely route. So one more thing we have to do before we begin our project is to be able to navigate from this component without actually visiting it from here. And for us to do that is very simple. I just have to import these from from Svelte Navigator. And inside here, I can bring in the use navigate, and then I'm gonna initialize navigate. So just gonna call this a const of navigate. So we have the use navigate. So right here, I'm just gonna add a button. So it's not gonna be a styled button, but it's just for us to understand something. So let's say move to second route. So right here, I can just add an on-click event. So we have an on-click event, and I'm going to quickly create a handle move, which is the function. So inside here, I can just say navigate to. So we have R2, and we definitely have to make sure it's the URL path that we want to navigate to. And right here, we can just use the callback. Then we can call the handle move, and that'll be nice. So we just allow this to refresh. And right now, hopefully when I click on this, we can come back to Route 2. So we can just simply go ahead and copy this and replace everything inside Route 2 so that we can just kind of make sure that everything kind of navigate back. So this one navigates back to the home page. So this is first route, and we can call this Route 2. So let's save that and allow that to refresh as well. So right now, definitely we are getting an error because I didn't serve this. Because of the auto reload, I kind of serve the dev. So let me just serve this again. So right now, let me just go ahead and move to first route, move to second route. So right now we are able to navigate from one page to the other. So guys, I think enough of the basics. Everything we've learned here is already enough for us to proceed with the tutorial. So if you've managed to reach this far, please do make sure you hit the like button and also the subscribe button. And right now, let's dive in. So guys, we are not going to spend much time working on the application for this tutorial. It's just as basic as everything you just learned, just that you must know how to use CSS. You must know how to apply the basic things you just learned. So I'm just going to talk you through this application. There is no complicated thing over here, so I'm not gonna waste time trying to like do the codes, type the codes down, because I just want the tutorial to be as simple as straightforward for anyone to understand that. So when you come into this application, you kind of notice the URL as the home page, and we just learned about routes. We can route to another component and we can go back to the previous component. So we are kind of in another component called the player component or the player route. And with the help of JavaScript DOM manipulation, just like I suggested, you just have to know the basics of these things. You are already okay for the tutorial. You could see we got some nice looking UI interface and also some DOM manipulation. When I go ahead and click on this, it just got closed. We can play music and we just stopped the music. We can skip and we can also stop the music while we skipped. So I'm just going to talk you through the codes. There is no complicated things. So right here, we got our navigator and our components, and the first screen that appears here is the onboarding component. And when we click inside of it, we kind of get the use navigate that we used here. So I didn't actually use this use location. So I can just get rid of it or still leave it for you. Maybe you can dig more deep of what the use location is used for. Then we do have another component called the player. Inside this player component, I did get the link from a dev.to tutorial. So I just kind of used it to make up this tutorial. The only missing thing that we didn't touch in this tutorial was the fact that we used a store. A store is not complicated. It's just that it's kind of a little bit similarity with the way a Redux store is. So right here, we do have a store file. So if you check closely here, I do have a store file, and I created a function called store. And then we do have our initial state. You can change this to initial state values, anyone. Then we added our song or array of song. Then we have play, false, repeat, blah, 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 and a lot of chunks there. The only new thing again here is the fact that we have a lifecycle method called onMount. So if you know about component did mount, component did update, so Svelte do have all these lifecycle methods or lifecycle hooks, but this is not a hook, this is a method. And then we have our use navigate. We also have our navigate we just initialized. So these are a bunch of components. So you remember the playlist. So when you click on here, you're gonna see this nice, beautiful playlist. So that playlist is exactly what you're seeing here in the components. So this is the playlist. Then we do have our images that we used. So right here, it's where all the functionalities have been applied. So let me kind of go through it. So we have the singer name, the current image, which is definitely here. Then we have the singer name or the current artist, which is beneath that. Then we have the progress or playbar progress. So this kind of is being updated while the music is playing. So we have the audio source, and then we have the buttons. We have skip back button, the play or pause button, and then the next or skip forward button. So when you come at the top here, you kind of see whenever the application loads, we kind of set a default music. And when we set the default music, we are going to allow the button to be clicked, the play button to be clicked, and then we play that song, or else if it is playing, we kind of pause the song. Then we have a play function here, which kind of help us to play music when we skip. So something like that, or when we skip back. And we also have some skip function here. So if you notice here, I kind of use the conditional statements. So we have the song count is greater or equal to the total song minus 1. We kind of bring the handle skip function. So the handle skip function is very simple. All we just simply do is to update every previous value to a new value of the current song that is playing. Then we kind of play the music here, just like I told you, whenever we click on next or previous. So we set that music, and then we kind of play that music, or we kind of pause that music based on what we just want to click. Then we have the places that we added the event listener. And this one kind of update the progress bar or the play bar with the audio current time as we are playing the songs. So we also have the skip forward and also skip back. So there are no much complicated things here. The code is there for you. So I just wanted to make a Svelte course, a Svelte simple course. So this is just for you for free. You can just go ahead and grab the source code from the description. We are going to build more interactive application. But just bear with me this time around. I'm in a kind of uncomfortable situation, so I wouldn't get a chance to do all this. So that's why I kind of explain it. So guys, one way to support my channel always is to hit the like button and also the subscribe button. So that's one way to support my channel. So this tutorial is for you guys. I have you in heart. So the next tutorial is going to be very interesting, I promise, and I'm gonna type codes down and explain things. So thank you guys for watching once more. So this is the project and it's for you. Just go ahead and grab that source code. So thank you once more, and see you on our next video.